First of all, what do you think of this idea of bilingual education as opposed to immersion into English? I understand that just about everybody in the world, the Chinese want to learn English. I taught in China, and I thought that many of those kids that I was teaching, I call them kids, they were all college level, but they could speak English very, very well.
Better than a lot of people over here.
Yes, that's true. Let me ask you, what's your idea about bilingual? Do you think, as I do, that by putting these children in a Spanish-speaking class at a young age, that you're actually holding those children back at a later date?
Okay, we'll see you later. Have a good day.
And that's the young fella.
That's the young fella just leaving with a mouthful of pears.
What do you think about bilingual education?
Okay, bilingual does one primary thing. It holds the Spanish back, the Spanish-speaking person back, so he will never be able to get to his full capability scholastically, because he doesn't have a foundation to build on. If he takes English first and builds a foundation, then Spanish on top of that, and he can go anywhere in the world with it. But if he doesn't have the foundation, it's like building a building, if you got property down on the seashore and you build out next to where the waves come in, guess what happens? As soon as the waves come in, your house is gone. And this is what happens to every one of these kids. They grow up just a little bit, they can't speak and talk English good, they can't speak and talk Spanish good, and so what happens? They become a statistic, and we pay the bill in the courts.
Let me ask you one more thing. Harry and I have talked about the idea of a remedial program for those kids that are dropping out of high school.
Yep.
Number one, we do feel that one of the reasons for the dropout, and I've talked to a number of kids, is that they don't feel that the educational system is relevant to their needs. And we've considered the idea of, through a little bit more choice for the students and the parents, introducing vocational training. But in addition to that, what are we going to do about these kids that have been dropping? I know there's a question about whether the dropout rate is 50%, or I think as Superintendent Parzanowski said, 7 or 8%. I think it
depends what spin you put on it.
Well, let me just finish what I'm going to say on this. Basically, if you're talking about the dropout rate for the last week of school, it's probably 0. But if you took the dropout rate starting with kindergarten, it's probably much closer to the national average of 50%. Yeah. And the question I'm having now is what Harry and I have talked about, and I know you've been very interested in this as well, is that we could probably obtain state funding to create a remedial program, because these kids that are not graduating from school are virtually unemployable. What do you think about all of this?
Okay, as far as those kids, let me tell you one that I talked to on third Thursday. He's 19 years old. He's a little bit withdrawn because he cannot read and write. He graduated from high school.
And here's when they graduated. What about the ones that don't graduate? Yeah. So we have that problem with all
by
of them.
not being able to read and write, yes, he can write his name, and he can spell a few words, and he can read a very simple document. But if you asked him to make out a thing for Walmart for work, he would be lost, totally. And I told him, you come on out, meet us, hang around a little while so you feel comfortable, and we'll work on this reading business and writing business, and you can get it down. You can understand it. But all of this, if I had my choice, I would make English immersion no matter what the age. If they come in 8th grade and they speak Spanish or Chinese or something else, I would give them 1 year of English immersion.
Well, I'm going to say one thing.
And then, along with that, as far as in our town, because most of them are Spanish speaking, I would put in a day school, night school system for the elderly, so that we would not have to have 50 million secretaries on the school budget that speak Spanish. They would be able to, the parents would be able to come in and say, hey, just talk slow, I understand English.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I taught at the University of Bridgeport for a few years. A lot of kids were coming in. 80% of our kids were coming in from Asia and also from South America. Very, very bright kids. and most of them, incidentally, I used to joke about this, down in South America, probably got their basic high school education under a banana tree. And yet they came here, and the point is, these were not wealthy kids. They were people, for example, where the grandma and grandpa saved all their money to send to the United States to get an education. And these kids were so far outshining so many of our own children here. And that's one of the reasons I'm so interested in education. And you're just reinforcing by telling me that you got a kid who graduated from high school who really is unemployable because he hasn't been properly trained. You said something else I thought was very interesting, Jim. You said that if I brought that kid out here and I spent a little time with him, I could get him up to par.
Definitely.
And it probably wouldn't take 12 years of education and $12,000 a year to do so.
No, it would. My wife taught school in 3rd grade.
But can I ask you, interrupt one more time? Was this a Hispanic fella?
Yes.
Yes, it was a Hispanic. So the excuse is that, well, they don't understand English and the parents don't. So basically, you're saying a little tender, loving care. The kind of care that you've been giving these kids.
TLC does wonders.
Yes.
If a teacher doesn't have tender, loving care, she's not a teacher. She's there, or he's there, depending on which it is, just for the financial gain that they can get. And the student does not benefit because they can feel the attitude that a teacher has for them.
Do you think this has been something that I've been concerned about, and I know Stephen Edelman, who's also working for the Board of running for the Board of Education, is in favor of more choice.
Definitely.
Now and he's talking about charter school. I know his own child is actually going to a charter school.
And she's doing wonders.
She's doing wonderfully. Incidentally, it's not a brand new school, but it's a wonderful place out in Norwich, and he has to send his child to Norwich. And do you think that if you had more choice, there would be competition, so that, for example, if we had competition to our public school system here in Windham with more charter schools, and if the public school system began to lose students, do you think there'd be more competition out there where the teachers say, well, boy, I'd either better shape up or move out, because we have a lot of very good teachers, don't get me wrong. We have a lot of very good teachers.
I don't think the teachers are the major problem. The major problem is administration. Anytime that you have 3 or 4 vice principals, and I was in high school the other day talking with a young man, I go there and I get more hugs and kisses from the girls and the boys than anybody around. I can stand there by the office and get a dozen kids come up and, hi, Mr. B, and you get a hug and a kiss, and away they are off to their classroom. Well, this young man had a prohibitive item on him that was visible, a cell phone, I believe it was, or something that looked to me like a cell phone. And
hopefully not a gun.
No, not a gun. No, I know this gentleman. He wouldn't have a gun. But the vice principal came up and said, what's that on your side? And he put his shirt down over it. He said, nothing. The vice principal walked off. Okay, so what's that tell me? That tells me that within the scope of administration, there is no accountability. They won't follow through. He did not follow through. So anybody in that school can get away with, well, we won't say murder, but get away with all kinds of things. And the dress code, there is a dress code there. But I was put to shame by